Let's talk about paellas. Look, I'm no expert in paella. I've only been introduced to the dish like last year. I took a cooking class, which part of it, of course, they're going to teach you the most famous dish in Spain. I wasn't super hyped about it because I didn't really like Spanish rice, or I thought I didn't. But turns out it was really fun to try. It was very delicious, and it's not so hard to make. You see, I kind of hated Spanish rice when I was a kid. I've done a video about that, but I didn't know what Spanish rice was. I only knew it from like rice-a-roni, and not even really rice-a-roni. We bought like this budget version of rice-a-roni that my dad used to make as an easy dish. And it somehow was mushy and uncooked at the same time. It was really gross. But as you find out more often than not, when you try the good stuff, it's quite good, and you see why people like it so much. And of course, as soon as I took a cooking class, that's when I started to realize that making paella doesn't seem all that complicated. In fact, what really became kind of an epiphany for me as far as like wanting to try it was finding out that it's not only not supposed to be a difficult dish, it's supposed to be the regular everyday quick meal that mom or dad would make every night of the week with whatever ingredients they had. That got me thinking, because the same thing kind of happened to me with pasta. As soon as someone, puts that perspective, or gives you that perspective rather, that this isn't supposed to be this complicated, maybe it's not. And suddenly, the shift in perception happens where it's like, you know what, I'm not gonna let this intimidate me. I'm just gonna make it and see what happens. And boom, suddenly it's an easy dish. And what's really cool is because it doesn't rely on a standard set of ingredients, or at least it's not supposed to, you can make it however you want. So yeah, now that I know the basics, I'm not intimidated by this dish, I'm making it all the time. And I think I'm getting pretty good at it. So let's get this first did you know out of the way. And that is, paella means this, the type of pan that you would cook paella in. So in fact, if you were to call this a paella pan, you're saying pan. Just one of those things, kind of like ATM machine, PIN number, that kind of thing. But the pan does a lot of the work. And it not only is built for making the rice, but it's also designed, which I'll talk about a little later, about how to prepare the ingredients and everything. And so you can do all your frying and prepping on it, and then the boiling of the rice right in here with measurements kind of built in. It's kind of foolproof. And for this fool, I really appreciate that. Also, as a suggestion, you can see mine's already like really dirtied up and stained and everything from all the times that I'm using it. But another piece of advice that someone gave me was don't get one that has the non-stick coating on it, because, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but good paella has a little crispiness around the edges, and the non-stick really doesn't do that as well. But it also plays with the temperature. You want this. It's not very hard to clean these pans. You can see that it's good. It's like aluminum steel kind of stuff. So I mean, it's gonna stain, but not in a bad way. Oh, also, this was €6. It's a 26-incher, which is supposed to be for about 2 people. Of course, my big appetite, just for me, but I've also been told that paella should never be cooked for 1. So I've interpreted that to mean I should eat 2 portions. So the other thing I should mention is the pronunciation. Us clumsy English pronounce it paella. but technically it's paella, sort of. Still probably not pronouncing it right, but it's paella. The Spanish pronounce the two L's as kind of a mix between ya and ja, and it's like right in the middle, and I can't quite get there. Ya, ja, ja, paella, paella. I'm probably butchering it, so I'll continue to just say paella and ask for your forgiveness on pronunciation. See, paella originated in Valencia as kind of like a poor rural dish. And the idea was that you would use whatever ingredients were available. So in season, and you could afford it, which often meant things like rabbit, duck, or even snails. The original recipe included green beans, garafo beans, and of course, rabbit, duck, whatever protein, and spiced with saffron and rosemary. But the problem is that saffron's a bit expensive, so turmeric was often replaced with it. And if you ask me, it's probably better. That's what I use. But did you notice I didn't say seafood? Valencians, people who come from Valencia, they're very trying to figure out the best word for uptight, a little nicer word, protective. Just kidding. They do get very protective of their dish, and there are some rules. For example, they will become uptight about things like adding chorizo. I would have thought that would be pretty cool, and especially seafood. See, that's not something that Valencia would put in their paella. In fact, if you talk to them, they will tell you it's just wrong. It's just absolutely wrong, which is very surprising to most people because that's what a typical paella looks like, right? It's got the little mussels and shrimp all inside, right? But no, that's not what you're supposed to do with paella. Now, of course, in their defense, I can understand it. I mean, it's their national dish, and how would you feel about a bunch of tourists just, turning it into some kind of novelty outside of its traditional recipes, outside its traditional use? In fact, in Valencia, apparently it's quite an experience, which I really want to try one day, soon. But it's a family thing. You get together, there's a big open fire with a great big paella, the pan, and they make it for the whole group. It's a communal experience, and it sounds like a lot of fun, but also very delicious. There are, of course, some practical rules to paella. I mean, you want the rice to be softer, but still firm. And of course, that nice crispiness on the bottom, which you get from the pan and how you heat it and all that kind of stuff. The other thing to consider, why didn't I start this while I was going upstairs? The other thing to consider is the ingredients that you use. As I've found out the hard way, very often if you're using some more less firm ingredients after it gets cooked, or ingredients that have a lot of water, it's going to mess with the overall texture of it and it'll fall down. In fact, the idea is if you've got the right crispiness on the bottom and the nice firmness to all the rice, then you should be able to hold it up sideways to prove that it's done properly. And that's the fun of it, is you live, you learn. Oh, I got more steps. Okay. And of course, the other thing about the texture of the rice is the kind of rice that you use. In fact, around here, paella is made exclusively with bomba rice, which is a round grain rice, as opposed to like long grain rice, which is a little stickier than the rice we'd use in North America, and of course, a little starchier. It's a natural filler to add that starchiness, but at the same time without making it too creamy. So it's kind of like a little like risotto, but just a little drier, if you think about it that way. But that's what makes this story so interesting. As uniquely Spanish as paella is, it's because of the uniqueness of Spain itself and its history. You see, back in the 700s, the Muslims invaded. If we've ever talked about Spanish history, you probably knew that. But they brought over the rice, arroz. And it was in these areas that they found the low-lying areas where you could create marshes which would produce the rice, where in places like Valencia, where paella comes from. And it became this rice dish with Arabic spices from the Middle East, which made it very, very unique. And it was that bomba rice, or a derivative of it, that the Arabs brought over and the Spanish took over for themselves and created this uniquely multicultural dish that, of course, evolved through Spain's history. So where can you find the best paella? I don't know. I haven't found it yet. I've tried some mediocre paella. I've tried some really bad paella. But when I find out where the best stuff is, I'll let you know. But I can tell you how to avoid a bad paella. And number one is never order it near an attraction. That's one of those standard tourism tips, is you never want to buy food near an attraction if you want the food to be really good or cheap. That's one thing. And unfortunately, places like Madrid have a really bad reputation for having these restaurants by the attractions. And it's basically microwaved paella, made in bulk or even frozen, and then just microwaved, handed to you with the little seafood on top. So, I mean, you definitely want to avoid that. Okay, so I don't want to be a tourism snob, so let me just clarify. If you want to eat at an attraction with a nice view, do it. Just understand that the food's going to be mediocre at best, and it's probably going to be expensive. You get what you pay for, and in those cases, you're paying for the view, not the food. And really, all you need to do is take another block, north, west, south, east, doesn't matter, into a smaller area, and you'll find much better restaurants, like the ones up here. The other type of place that you want to avoid is the ones with the menus with the big pictures of paella, and usually with menus in 10 or 12 languages. They're tourist places. That's what this place is, right? Like you pay for the views, right? Their rents are very high. They have a small margin they have to make up for it. It makes sense. But if you want a good paella, this isn't the place. When I find that place, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, I think I'll just make it myself. Now, street food and tapas might be a little different because you have to sell that kind of stuff where the people are. But just as kind of a rule of thumb, there is a little bit of a difference between where the people are and where the tourists are. Once you know the difference, you'll know where to get the right food. And when you find out, let me know. Would you? Okay, there might be a little too many people here. Why don't I make some at home? So that's it. It's almost done. This is everything I know about paella and the research that I've been doing by just living in Madrid. I'm probably made a few people angry. This is the way I make it, and I'm learning, and I'm just trying it over and over again. I think this is about my 5th version. I've made chicken today, but I've made chicken previously. I also used the squid once, and of course the shrimp. But I think I've captured the spirit of the dish in that it's simple, and I'm using local ingredients, and I'm feeding myself very simply and honestly. And I think that is what the paella is all about. And so yeah, the original intent of the paella. Now, the one way that I'm definitely not doing it right is that you're supposed to make this to share with your loved ones. It's just me here. I'm certainly one of my loved ones, but I should probably figure out how to share this at some point. So how did it turn out? Let's try. Look at those little crunchy bits. Oh, it's so good. Oh, did you want me to teach you how? Well, I'll make you a deal. Like the video, subscribe, and in a little while, maybe I'll make a how-to video. How does that sound? Anyway, I hope you're doing great. I'm clearly doing great. Welcome again back to Madrid, and I will talk to you guys soon. Adios, hasta luego. Bye, everyone. This might have been a bad idea. I actually feel like going to sleep now.